I never chose to be born, and it seems neither did my parents want me at first. My mother often recounts her youthful days, filled with naivety and a headstrong love for a man whose loyalty faltered easily. Her unexpected pregnancy with me, Mia, marked a turning point. She considered not having me, but our grandparents intervened decisively. In those days, single parenting was rare, so my parents married under pressure and I arrived into the world not long after, much to my father's dismay. He often lamented the loss of his youth, casting me not as his child, but as a burden that held him back from the life he envisioned. For a decade, it was just the four of us in a small house. I walked on eggshells around my father. My mother was perpetually busy with household chores, and my father's discontent grew each day. Then, my sister Mila was born, the child they truly desired. Suddenly, I was pushed further to the margins. "Watch, Mila. Be quiet. Why can't you be more like her?" became the regular refrains of my existence. Mila received all the new clothes, praise, and love, while I got accustomed to disappointment and took on most of the household duties without thanks. Cooking was the only task I cherished. There was something magical about blending ingredients and creating new flavours. I still remember the first time I made my special lasagna for a family gathering. My aunt was amazed, crediting my mother, who accepted the compliments while I stood forgotten. The kitchen became my refuge, a place where I could find peace away from the shadow of Mila's favoured status. In high school, my culinary skills flourished. I managed to impress even my father, whose gruff approval meant the world to me. My dreams grew as well. I envisioned owning a bustling restaurant. When I finally voiced this ambition, the response was discouraging. My father dismissed the idea as a sure path to failure, and Mila mockingly suggested I work at a fast food chain instead. Undeterred, I pursued culinary school, funded reluctantly by my father, who declared it my inheritance, leaving everything else to Mila. Culinary school was a revelation. For the first time, I felt valued and recognised for my skills. My classmates and instructors appreciated my work, and I thrived in this new environment. However, graduating without the funds to start my own place, I had to return home, where the stark difference between my passionate college life and my family's indifference hit hard. Now a qualified chef, I was once again relegated to the role of cook, my culinary degree merely a decoration. Despite the challenges, I landed a job as an Pan-Asian chef at a local restaurant. The pay was minimal, but it was a start. At home, I was burdened with endless chores, my mother's way of reminding me of my duties. But I didn't let it deter me. I spent every free moment planning and dreaming of my restaurant. I knew that one day I would make it happen, and when that day came, I would show everyone the true extent of Mia's capabilities. Each day felt the same, but with each dish I prepared and every plan I devised, I was slowly but surely paving the way to my own success. I put in endless hours of hard work at the local diner, while my sister Mila was endlessly pampered with every luxury I ever dreamt of. The day Mila began high school, my dad came home wearing a grin that stretched ear to ear. "Mila, honey," he shouted, beckoning her outside to reveal a gleaming new car in our driveway, a painful reminder of the disparities between us. "But I can't even drive yet," Mila exclaimed, eyes wide with surprise. Dad just laughed and tossed her the keys. "You will soon. My girl deserves the best from the very beginning." I clenched my jaw so tightly at the sight that I tasted blood. When I turned 15, all I got was a used bike, necessary only for commuting to my part-time job. The gifts didn't stop at the car. Every week, Mila received something new. The latest smartphone, a high-end laptop, designer, outfits, even a bedroom makeover that transformed her space into a 4-star suite, while I was stuck in a room that hadn't changed since I was 10, complete with peeling wallpaper and a squeaky old bed. Feeling more like an outsider each day, I contemplated moving out to escape the glaring inequality. I could maybe share an apartment, anything to feel less invisible. But then, Christmas rolled around. Determined to make a statement, I spent my savings on thoughtful gifts for everyone. Lottery tickets for the big jackpot, not just cheap scratch-offs. On Christmas morning, I handed out the tickets, trying to hide my anticipation. My mother's face dropped with disappointment, and my father scoffed, dismissing them as trivial. Mila didn't even bother to open hers, simply rolling her eyes. "Oh, Mia, that's really considerate," my mum patronised before suggesting that since I hadn't got them anything of value, I shouldn't expect anything in return. The hurt was palpable. Without a word, I grabbed the tickets back. "Fine, Merry Christmas then!" I declared and stormed out, leaving their stunned faces behind. Seeking solace, I ended up at the diner, sharing drinks and stories of familial woes with my co-worker Ellie. It wasn't the festive celebration one might hope for, but it was genuine, and I didn't feel so alone. Back at work after the holidays, I almost ignored a call from an unknown number, dismissing it as likely spam. Yet, when it rang again, curiosity won over, and I answered. It was the lottery commission informing me that one of my tickets had won, $910, $100 after taxes. Shocked and exhilarated, I raced home bursting with the news, only to be met with demands from my family claiming the prize as their own. "No," I found myself saying firmly, the years of feeling overlooked fueling my resolve. "This is my ticket, my chance, and I'm going to use it to start my own restaurant." Arguments erupted, but I stood my ground. When my mother coldly told me to leave if I couldn't accept their terms, I finally saw the clear picture of how conditional their affection was. "Fine," I said quietly, my decision made. I packed my essentials and left, their astonished expressions etched in my mind. My first destination was the lottery office to claim my prize, setting into motion the first day of my new life, driven by my dreams and sustained by my determination to rise above the inequalities that had long defined my place in our family. After claiming my lottery winnings, I immediately sought out a real estate agent. "I need an apartment, something available right away," I told the agent, who looked quite surprised by my urgency. By evening, I was sitting on the floor of my new apartment, a modest one-bedroom in a respectable neighbourhood. It was simple, but it was completely mine. With no furniture yet, I settled down with some takeout and began browsing through restaurant equipment catalogues on my phone, filled with a sense of hope I hadn't experienced in years. My first task was creating a solid business plan. I dedicated weeks to research, crunching numbers, and meticulously planning each detail. After countless revisions, I developed a plan I was genuinely proud of. Next, I needed the perfect location. After an exhaustive search, I stumbled upon a small, neglected space that had been vacant for years. The landlord smirked when I shared my vision to transform it into a restaurant. "Good luck with that, sweetheart," he chuckled, handing me the keys. The following 2 months were spent renovating this forgotten space into my dream restaurant. I hired contractors, chose every fixture, and personally cleaned every corner. It was exhausting, physically demanding work, but each blister and bruise felt like a victory. When the grand opening day finally arrived, I stood in my kitchen, my own kitchen, surrounded by a team I had carefully selected and trained. As the first order came in, adrenaline surged through me. "Let's do this," I declared, tying on my apron. The initial months were intense. I worked 20-hour days, juggling cooking, managing, and tackling any task that needed attention. Gradually, the word spread. People didn't just enjoy my food, they loved the passion and creativity I poured into it every day. I introduced a loyalty program for regular customers, offering special discounts and first dibs on new dishes, which became incredibly popular. I soon had a dedicated group of regulars who felt more like family. Not stopping there, I established a delivery service, partnering with local couriers to bring my food directly to customers' homes. Although managing quality control was challenging at first, it proved successful. Social media became a powerful tool for me. I posted daily specials, behind-the-scenes videos from the kitchen, and interacted with customers online, which significantly grew my follower base and, subsequently my customer base. 3 years in, my business was not only surviving but turning a profit. It was modest, but it was progress. I began scouting for a second location. Opening another restaurant was simultaneously simpler because I had experience and more challenging, as I couldn't be in 2 places at once. I had to learn to delegate and trust my staff to uphold my standards in my absence. We adapted, and 5 years later, I opened a third location. Before I knew it, I had established a successful chain of restaurants. I, Mia Thompson, had made it against all odds. Running a chain wasn't without its challenges. There were nights I cried from stress, days I doubted myself. But every time I visited my restaurants and saw the joy in my customers' faces and smelled the delightful aromas, I knew all the struggles were worth it. One ordinary Tuesday, while reviewing financials in my office, I received a call from a number I hadn't seen in years. Home. Hesitant, I answered. "Mia," my mum's voice came through, "we need your help. It's about Mila." My dad then explained that Mila had lost her job over accusations of theft and now couldn't find work. They were asking if I could employ her at one of my restaurants. I almost scoffed at their audacity to ask me for a favour after all this time. But then I heard Mila's voice, small and frightened, apologising and asking for help. I took a deep breath, my resolve softening. "Let me talk to her," I said. Despite everything, she was still my sister. I agreed to hire Mila but made it clear from the start. There will be no special treatment here. Make a mistake and you're out, understood? "Yes, thank you so much, Mia," Mila responded, overflowing with gratitude. The next day, she arrived on time, her face a mix of nerves and resolve of. I started her off as an administrator, giving her simple tasks initially, and gradually increasing her responsibilities. To my surprise, she took her work seriously, paid attention during training, asked insightful questions, and never complained. One evening, as we were wrapping up, Mila suddenly broke down in tears. "I need to tell you the truth," she sobbed. "I didn't steal anything from my last job. My boss, he tried to force himself on me. When I refused, he fired me and spread rumours that I was a thief." A wave of protective anger washed over me. "Why didn't you report him?" I asked. "Who would believe me over him?" she replied, wiping her eyes. "I was so scared, Mia." "I believe you," I said, pulling her into a hug. "And I'm here to help you. We'll figure this out together." Over the following weeks, I dedicated myself to teaching Mila everything about running a restaurant. She absorbed information like a sponge, eager to learn and prove herself. Watching her confidently manage a rush of customers filled me with a mix of pride and unease. Mila was turning out to be a quick learner and a diligent worker, yet a small voice in the back of my mind cautioned me not to let my guard down entirely. Initially, everything seemed perfect. Mila threw herself into her work with a passion I hadn't seen in her before. She was always the first to arrive and the last to leave, even taking on extra shifts and volunteering for the hardest tasks. But then, whispers began to reach my ears. At first, I dismissed them as petty workplace gossip, but as time passed, the whispers grew louder and more insistent. One day, my head chef pulled me aside. "I think you need to know something. Your sister, she's been stirring up trouble," he said, his expression uneasy. "She's been telling people we're underpaid, that you're hoarding all the profits. She even suggested we should go on strike." I was stunned. "That's ridiculous. You all know how tight our margins are. I've always been transparent about the finances." "We know, boss," Chef assured me. "None of us are buying what she's selling, but there's more." He continued, telling me how Mila had been claiming that the restaurant rightfully belonged to her, that I had somehow cheated her out of her share of the family money. I felt like I had been punched in the gut. After everything we'd been through, after I'd given her a second chance, this is how she repaid me. I confronted Mila that evening, my hands shaking with anger and disappointment. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" I demanded. Mila's face was a mask of innocence. "What are you talking about?" I laid out everything I'd heard. To my shock, Mila shrugged. "Oh, that. I was just testing the staff's loyalty, making sure they wouldn't turn on you. Looks like they passed with flying colours." I wanted to believe her. I really did. But there was something in her eyes, a glint of something cold and calculating, that made me hesitate. Before I could question her further, my assistant manager, Ellie, knocked frantically on my office door. "Mia, we've got a problem," she said, pale and scared. "There's a big shortage in the cash register. Over $10,000 missing." We spent the next few hours reviewing the books and checking the numbers. There was no mistake. A significant amount of cash had vanished. Only 4 people had access to that register: Ellie, Chef, and Mila. Ellie and Chef had been with me from the start, through all the ups and downs. I trusted them implicitly. As if reading my thoughts, Mila whispered, "You know, Ellie has been staying late a lot lately, and she did just buy that fancy new car." As Mila walked away, I knew I had to make a decision. I couldn't ignore this. Too much was at stake. My business, my reputation, the livelihoods of all my loyal employees. Late one night, after everyone had gone home, I installed hidden cameras around the cash registers. It felt wrong, like I was betraying my staff's trust, but I had no choice. For days, I watched hours of mundane footage until on the 4th night, I saw it. Mila, moving quickly and furtively, opened the register and stuffed wads of cash into her pockets. My heart sank. I didn't confront her directly. Instead, I called the police. The next day, as Mila was finishing her shift, 2 officers walked in. The look on her face, shock, then anger, told me everything I needed to know. As the police led Mila away, she lashed out violently, knocking over tables and shattering dishes on the floor. "I deserve this money. I should be rich, not you. You stole my life," she screamed. Watching her being taken away, I felt an overwhelming sense of emptiness, a void where my love for my sister once resided. The following day, the atmosphere in my restaurant shifted dramatically when my parents burst in. Tears streamed down my mother's face, and my father's complexion was a deep shade of red from his anger. "How dare you!" he bellowed. "Drop the charges against your own sister now!" But I held my ground. "No," I asserted. "She stole from me, and she must face the consequences." I showed them the security footage on my phone of Mila stealing. "Look," I said, "this is what Mila has done. She's a thief." They watched, their faces draining of colour. However, instead of understanding, they became even more defensive. "You set her up," they accused. "You've always been jealous of her." I was astounded by their accusations. "Jealous? Are you serious? After all the scraps you've given me and expected gratitude? No, I'm done. Mila made her choices and now she has to live with them." They continued to rant and rave, swinging between threats and pleas. But I stood firm. "Get out," I demanded. "Leave my restaurant, leave my life. If you don't go now, I'll call the police." They eventually left, but not before my father hissed, "You'll regret this, Mia. Mark my words." The trial that followed was a nightmare. Mila's emotional testimony nearly made me doubt my actions. But then, a surprising witness came forward, her former boss. He testified about her aggressive behaviour at her previous job, how she threatened to accuse him of sexual harassment when he rebuffed her advances, and how she retaliated by stealing from the company. Ultimately, the jury found her guilty. As they escorted her away, she gave me a final look. There was no remorse in her eyes, only a chilling coldness. I haven't spoken to my family since that day. Sometimes, in the quiet of the night, I question whether I made the right decision. But then I look around at the life I've built for myself, at the restaurant thriving under my guidance, and I feel reassured that I did the right thing. Now, as I stand in the kitchen of my latest restaurant, watching my dedicated staff prepare for another busy evening, a profound sense of peace envelops me. This team, this place, it's my true family now, my real home. And no one, not Mila, not my parents, not anyone can take that away from me.